I just love you guys, and I appreciate you being here for us, and I appreciate you doing the things that we are doing, and I appreciate you building this. Please like this episode, as well as every other episode you do enjoy going on right now that I'm very excited about. And I see Doge, and I see the realignment of the educational system coming together for a real unique opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. And that's exciting more and more each day. It all comes back to coming back to yourself, taking your, you have three brains, right? You have the brain of the head, you have the brain of the heart, and you have the brain of the gut, gut instinct, right? I would love to really be able to get into some comfortable situations where we can start feeding back into the community that we haven't had in a long time. If we take the right approach, we have the ability to really dramatically affect not only the children growth, we can start turning revenues and rolling them into, for instance, here in this small town, seeing what kind of effects we have. We have coming up very shortly, as much as we should. And I think this is probably the strongest because it has emotion as well. And then those two signal to the brain to send out the chemicals that do the work that needs to be done according to whatever I have already talked a little bit about it with Emma on Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rod. How you doing, brethren? Loving the life today. It's a nice day out. It's fall is finally starting to show its place in the world. And I'm in Oklahoma now, as you all know. I moved down here from Chicagoland, and before that I was in California. So I'm kind of doing a little triangle, working my way back to my family here. It's been a very exciting a couple of months here. We're really working on developing this rejuvenation school project, Voices at the Table. Oh wow, we got a good crowd coming in already. Appreciate you guys coming in. Please subscribe. We're on our way to get to 10,000. We've gotten a nice little push going here this week, and I'd like to keep that momentum going if we could. We started our Substack newsletter. First printing was dropped on Tuesday at 2:30, and that's had a lot of literally 100% opening. People opening that first post. We're going to start talking about Barbieisms here pretty quick. I'm really excited about that. I've been saving this up forever. Someday I'm going to make a tabletop book and dedicate it to producer Barbie. That's where Barbieisms come from. Collection of over 2 decades with producer Barbie, and very, very much have shaped a lot of my world, and they'll be shaping your world too. Give you an example. Barbieism: you can't pour from an empty cup, but you can refill it, that same cup, with laughter. And then there's a whole additional explanation of that Barbieism. So what I'll be doing is, on the free subscribers, I think we have close to a dozen now. Like I said, I just started this a couple of days ago, and so we've got about a dozen subscribers. We even have some paid subscribers, and so we'll be dropping these as well as what's happened in the past, the past week, and what's coming up in the coming weeks. Again, we've got about 113 people on, and please subscribe, please support this. It's you folks that make this platform, this program, be able to continue to operate and flourish and provide the details that are important for the great middle class. I love the fact of being here with you folks every day, 6 days a week, and I want to do this for the continuation of time. Really looking forward to how this show develops over time. We just started in September, a year ago, in 2024, on Constitution Day. As you know, we have 4 lanes, and in those 4 lanes, we talk about finance, business, crypto. One of them, crypto, finance, crypto, blockchain. How business is turning, or how it will develop in the future. I left one of my lights off here. I should probably put that on, but I'm running solo today. Wow, we have almost 200 people on, 193 people. Appreciate you guys coming in, and appreciate everything you do for the show. You're the lifeblood of the show. I'm honored enough each day to be part of it, and to kind of narrate some things around, and throw some ideas and develop some ideas out there. Today we are going to pull this up real quick. Today we are going to talk about reshaping. So these 4 lines, okay. In these 4 lines, we have the business lane, okay, and then we have mental health, where we talk obviously about mental health and the issues and how to resolve those issues. We had a fascinating discussion on Tuesday with a young lady who wrote the book Unbroken: Life Outside the Lines, and and in her development as a child, she went through some very dramatic situations of, everything from incest to homelessness, to being sexually abused in pedophilia, even being sexually abused in home shelters, and just really difficult situation. And then we have building within the community, and that's really a special lane to me, because it's what I get to do with my granddaughter, Emma Lynn, one of my granddaughters, the eldest granddaughter, Emma Lynn. It's called Insights and Straight Talk with Emma Lynn and Grandpa Rod. You can tell I'm definitely well into the grandpa age. I might even be able to get great grandchildren. Never expected that. That would be freaking dynamic. Take your time, Emma. You got plenty of time for that. I'm definitely not rushing that one. But love the opportunity to have that next generation. It'd be kind of cool to have pictures of multiple generations. It'd be really dynamic. I've seen and known people who have their bloodline continue on, and to me it's very exciting. So we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about so we had a guest by the name of Super Julie Braun. She's the powerhouse founder of Super Purposes. She wasn't able to make it on today. It was kind of weird. Don't want to throw too much mud out there, but a little bit. I'm going to speck some mud. Day before yesterday, I got a confirmation finally. Back said we'll be there 30 minutes early. You must refer to her as this and that, and there were all these demands, and I'm like, I didn't even see that. But then yesterday, which was the day later, they canceled it. Said we changed or go in a different direction. I don't remember what the comment was, but anyway, she for whatever reason, she's not joining us today. But the message that she has is too powerful not to continue. Well, first of all, you guys have scheduled your time, and you know how I feel about having your time and having the honor to be part of this time of your day and your life. You're supporting us, and sometimes people just don't get that. They're living in whatever world they're living in. And again, this is no bad thing or anything, but at the end of the day, you know, you can't really just last minute stuff on people. You know, it's not fair to I don't know how many people are on here now. Let me see. 325 people. You know, it's just not fair. You folks are putting your time, and you're honoring us with your time. And obviously they're coming on because they have a message that they want to pass on. And if that message gets canceled especially at the last minute, that's the hard part. You know, it's a matter of trying to get people dialed in. And you know, as my eldest son once said, there's a lot of difficulty out there in the web today, and you just can't necessarily rely on people. She's helped over 17,000 people reinvent their lives and land jobs with purpose. And what she teaches lines up perfectly with the mission and talk we're here every week to rebuilding the great middle class. You know, I mean, when you're 40, 50, in my case, 60, and there's something in your world changes to where you have to reinvent yourself. That's a very up to the point of being staggering proposition. You've lived your life, you've built a career, and then for whatever circumstance, whether it be a relationship that goes away, whether it be a job, a career that you've been building that goes away. And you know, when I saw this, when I saw this episode, this discussion, this ability to pass information on, I was very intrigued, because we talk a lot about the Reinvention School project, and that's critical for the kids coming up. You know, finding their voices at the table. That's the upcoming great middle class. Now, keep in mind, the middle class isn't a number earned. It's the largest segment, the most powerful, the backbone, the literal reason that our country in this case, but it goes across the civilized world anyway. We're the mechanical, we're the financial backbone of this country, and you know, here we call them the great middle class, right? Or the middle class. We call them us. We call us the great middle class, because we're the most forgotten, most ignored powerhouse, most powerful group or force that has ever existed in the world. We're the most powerful force and the most powerful, rich and prosperous country ever seen in history. I mean, we talk about the Romans and the Greeks, and you know, those great civilizations, but they pale in comparison to today's technology and the world that we live in today. You know, there's a truth about reinvention, and it's time that we reinvent. You know, because it's not about, you know, the dollars you make or the career you have. It's about who you are, and that's what this whole show really tends to lean into. And it's important to know that as time flows, as time goes by, and from experience, as shit happens, you need to keep going. There's a saying that I've taken to heart. It's very hard to beat a man. In my case, let me just say a man or a woman, but it's damn near impossible. It's very difficult to beat somebody who refuses to quit. And when life throws you big old boulders, you gotta be able to step back up, dust yourself off, and then continue on. And to be honest with you, folks, that's going to happen more and more often as this society develops, the technology that's coming. I talk about the Jetsons are not only coming, they're already here. AI, automation, these tools are literally reinventing the world as we sit at its table today. And we can either survive or we can thrive in this new coming world. For me personally, I built up a machinery business. I was into engineering, manufacturing, this and that, and I was miserable as hell. I was challenged in things that I wasn't passionate about. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I'm passionate about what I've done. I was passionate about that being able to support the families, the people that depend on me over time, and always, successful at that as far as supporting them and making what needed to be made happen. That's been my role in my life, in my relationships, in my family, kids and spouses or spouse. And at the end of the day, I could not continue down that road. And for a number of reasons, that the show isn't about that. You all know the story of my past. I've been probably a little too open of a book. Well, not to me, it's not anyway, and it doesn't seem like it is to you folks. The fact that we have made this transition, and by the way, please subscribe. Please subscribe to our newsletter. It's in the details, the description of today's show on YouTube. Let's see, I think we're streaming to everybody today. Got a couple questions coming in here. We are streaming to all at the same time: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, and Instagram. And we've got 325 people on. So I hope you folks get my message here and subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our Substack, our newsletter. First one dropped. Like I said, we're going to be adding other subjects. Of course, we'll be reviewing past shows and upcoming shows. We'll do a preview of. We'll do some backstage notes, backstage actions, backstage activity. That what happens behind the scenes and what develops out of what happens. So people see this, but there's obviously stuff that's happening back here, and we'll get into all those kind of discussions. We'll be giving additional one-on-one training sessions, support sessions. We'll be adding the Barbieisms. I want to read this first one. It hasn't gone out yet, so this is an exclusive for you guys, and I'm only going to give the short substack on this one. Barbieisms. This is the first one, and you're hearing it first, folks. I said it at the beginning of the show, but a bunch of people have come on. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you can fill that cup. You can refill it with laughter, and that's kind of the whole vibe, because we need to work on ourselves from the inside out, thus rebuilding and building on the great middle class from the inside out. That middle class, as I started to say a minute ago, it isn't a numbers thing, because the middle class is basically from the elites. They have that class. Nothing against that. No jealousy, and that's the beauty of this country. Wherever you start, you can end up wherever you want to, as long as you put in the effort and go. I've always had the thought about this country, that this country is built in a way that it says, welcome in, come on, let's get this done, and pat on the back, good luck, and we'll build your freeways, we'll protect you, and we'll make sure everything is just dialed in, but that's as far as it should go. And that's as far as we need. We need as a people, people too much try and rely on the government. And, that's an error. That's a tip ball that goes straight up and gets caught and you're out. That's never going to get the great American middle class anywhere. It's only an anchor around your neck. And, at the end of the day, there are certain circumstances where people need help. I get that. That happens. But then when those systems are abused or are fraught with waste and fraught with corruption and people lining their own pockets, which basically is every politician out there, to a certain degree. And so, let's hit a couple questions here, and then I'll go back into my monologue, and we'll drive some more questions for you. Let me see what we got here. So, John, so inspiring. How do you stay motivated when starting over after 50? Part of it's desperation, panic, scared, concerned. There is that segment because, my whole life was built on this path, right? Well, I should say my adult life. I got married at 23, and at that point, after college, I did both theater and business as a major, business administration. And I was really I'm very theatrical. I love writing. I've written thousands and thousands of poems. I'm talking to a young lady on social media, and it got me thinking about this question, John, because I've always done this. I've always written poems. I love literally thousands of poems. I've written 2 books, and then my memoir, which started this show, it's a book proposal with nonfiction. You write a proposal instead of the whole book. I have written a book, but I'm really focused on the proposal. So as I started what's called querying that, sending that out, John, you talk about reinventing, starting over after your 50s. I'm 63 now, and in June I turned 63, and I think for me it was a lot easier because I'm actually coming back to what I was put on this earth. Producer Barbie said the other day, you're going to be a huge success at this. And obviously she's a little biased, and I agree with her because I'm very biased about that subject. But at the end of the day, for me, I'm starting over, and this is how I stay motivated, because I'm starting over because I'm finding my actual place. And I've seen movies and I've seen different examples of how people in certain circumstances, situations, had their life change. I mean, what we're talking about today, and I'm not really even into this yet, but what we're talking about today is reinventing yourself and what happens when you have a loss, whether it's a career, whether it's a relationship. These are not uncommon things. I think the divorce rate now is into the 70%, which, by the way, I heard an interesting stat the other day. By far, the most divorces in a relationship, let's call it a marriage, most divorces are come out of the lesbian world, which is kind of interesting. Next level is husband and wives. By far the least divorces come from gay men. After all, gay means happy, right? So I'm not promoting anything there. I just shouting out or throwing out an interesting statistic. But for me, when I am now reinventing myself, I'm actually reestablishing my purpose, my mission. And like I said, I've seen many examples of how when that situation happens, whatever that is. In this case, let's talk about jobs. When you lose your career and you've spent your whole time doing it, and whether it be a layoff, the movie I'm referring to is companies downsizing. It's happening a lot in government employees today, which is a whole political thing. And I don't want this isn't a political segment, but it's everything's turning political these days. But the theme of this story, there were several scenes where somebody was let go, and then there was this panic, which obviously there would be. I get that. You're in a place, you get a check every couple of weeks or however you're set up or whatever, but you have that going on. Now you're in this office. There's two people across the desk from you, and they say, "I'm sorry, Rod." We'll use my name. I forget whatever the characters' names were, but we're going to have to let you go. And letting go, like what's happening in with the government shutdown. There's a lot of this happening now, and I bring that up only because this is a very real thing, and what sometimes that thing that happens to you does is it makes you reevaluate who you are. And it's not about what you are, it's who you are. And so I speak from a place, excuse me, I speak from a place. I went from an engineering, manufacturing all my life, sales job into a completely, basically a step back from being an actor, or where I started. I was in theater, I was in several plays, I was in a couple of movies, just background kind of shots. I was in Risky Business actually, and I was in Teen Wolf 2. If any of you are old enough to remember that, they actually opened several scenes on me. Teen Wolf 2 was kind of a flop, I think, but Risky Business and several others. That brought me joy. At that time, it just brought me joy. But I also wasn't confident enough in myself to be able to stick with moving that forward. And so when I got married, I didn't have the right stuff, to steal some words. Steal a line. I didn't have the right stuff to stay in that lane. And at the end of the day, as I think back, it's probably because I wasn't mature enough then, or capable enough then in confidence and abilities and all that, which, thinking ahead, I went into sales, started selling office equipment. See, what was my first? First I started selling, it was a company, I don't know if they're still around, Apple Employment. I went into applied for a job, and I used an employment agency. And when I was in talking to them, they said, they took all my information, and we talked and so forth. And they said, we don't have a lot of business. I was just looking for something in business because it was either theater or business administration. And so I wasn't even thinking sales at that point. But the lady who was interviewing me said, "You know what? We don't have a lot going on in that. However, would you be interested in working for us?" So I sat down and I accepted it and started working for Apple Employment. That was my first career-ish kind of job that started me down the sales side of things. About a year, it was about a year, uh, uh, of working there, I get a call. Actually, that's not true. I didn't get a call at 9:40 p.m. On this one evening. My wife's water broke. So a year I had my first child, and then so I had to call Apple and say, "Hey, I'm not going to be in tomorrow." It was crazy because I worked in a whole office full of nothing but women and me, and that was. As a matter of fact, I still talk to one of those people today, which was interesting and has its own interest in itself, and so. Now, as I'm reinventing myself, because my career in where I ended up going wasn't the kind of career that it supported the families, it supported the children, it did all the things that it was directed to do, but it took me a long time to finally realize one of the things that's been wrong with me. We talk about back in May last year in 2024 when I had a breakdown, where all those boxes where I compartmentalized things, behind the mask of JR, that all exploded one day, and I made the day after Cinco de Mayo, so that'd be what would that be? May 7th, Cinco de Mayo, right? 5/5, so 6. May 6th, I that evening I had a horrible thing happen, or I was in a horrible place. So I made it through that week, came home, and started wrapping everything final down on the business. It just, I couldn't do what I was doing anymore. And I was self-destructing. I was, all sorts of numbers of things happening in my world. And I started writing the book. WTF happened? What the fuck happened when I was in my 50s? And that book was widely applauded across. You go out and you query for agents. And they love the writing, but I don't have a platform. And publishing is a business, and I never published a book. Still have never published a book. So they said, build a platform. See what your social media, because you got to be able to sell yourself, and that's kind of a part of the gig. So I started this. We did our first episode, like I said, on September 17th. Producer Barbie and I were choosing between Grandparents' Day or Constitution Day. They're a week apart. And we chose, and I pushed. At the end of the day, we chose Constitution Day because that was at a time when, the elections were going crazy and the politics are still wildly crazy. That's the other lane that we do is current events and politics and current events, whether that be across the pond or whether that be here at home. So thank you, John. I appreciate it. It's inspiring. I hope you register. I hope you subscribe to our newsletter. It's free. And that's just more insights. And inside and behind the scenes information. Let's move along here a second. Let me see. Maria, very nice, beautiful picture. What is the hardest part of starting over, Rod? There's several things, actually. That's a great question, Maria. I appreciate that. The hardest part, there's a couple. One, for me, I had to literally take all of my savings and have lived off that for the last, I don't know, 8 months or so. When I say lived off that, meaning paying my bills and paying for the I mean, my own personal bills, but also paying for the, this building this, there's a lot of, electricity, uh, marketing, uh, monthly subscriptions to things like Canva and things like ChatGPT, things like Make.com, Substack, obviously. And it goes on and on. There's a lot that goes in, not just time and not just energy and effort. There's costs, and these costs are what are StreamYard, which is my streaming software, and so that's why I'm always asking for you guys to support us. Please subscribe. But the hardest part is making an adjustment, especially when you're not expecting it necessarily, or you're making plans for something that you don't have as much knowledge in when you make a transition. I mean, the ideal transition is my friend Joe Heap. I'll use him as an example. He lives out in California. I've known him for my boys and my kids his entire life. He owns a company called Patriot Video Productions. He does. He works for corporations and making creative and streaming their activities, and all the things that are involved in movie and production and all that. So I remember he was my first customer in the machinery business as a salesman. That built this up over 30 years. He was born in Texas. Awesome backstory, which we don't need to get into, but how he started is he and I helped him along with that. I did some work for him. Interesting stories there, but he started very small and made very little, and he did this in the evenings and the weekends while he was a engineer, creating new processes for his extrusion company. He worked for Mobile, was I think his first job, and then he continued down his career until he hit the point where it was able to replace the income he was making. That's a very similar to almost exact actually change. Now this was again 30 years ago, somewhere around the area of 30 years ago. He made that change, and he did it the way that's the easiest way to do. I planned on that same thing happening, but the costs are much higher than I expected that they would be. So it's been a challenge financially, or still is a challenge financially. Not a challenge that can't be overcome, but it is a challenge nonetheless. I'm going to turn this down. I'm trying to get, it's funny. I need glasses, but man, there's so much reflection that comes out of these things. It's hard to manage. So let me turn this down a little bit. So the other part is that, and something I noticed as I move along here, when I spent 30 years building up that business, what I did for a living, and that business, I got very, 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 very good at, as far as sales, as far as what I offered the industry, and became very successful. And with that, very confident about my ability to walk into a situation. And, I've seen it, done it, been there, done that before. So it was a very simple transition. Or I shouldn't say that. At the end, it was a very simple day-to-day activity for me. Now I come into this And while I have a little bit of experience, because I actually, I'm cheating a little bit here. I actually started what's called Insights, which I actually using the same accounts, because it wasn't really it wasn't a popular thing. It wasn't a public thing. It was used to, what I did is I interviewed in this style. So I'll just say interviewed industry leaders from the industries I serve, which is basically the chemical, food, chemical folding in with plastics industries, and sold industrial equipment, and then built it out to where I was building that industrial equipment. And like Barbie said, I did that for ego. My ego pushed me down that road. I mean, to the point where as I look back at it, really one of the driving forces that kept me going in that business was that I really wanted to get a patent published in the patent office, a lasting legacy, so to speak. And at some point maybe that would have happened, but never really developed. But so that's just a side story. But like she says, this is my purpose. This is the thing that has built me, but it comes with a lot of insecurity. I've got to be able to hold on to my own heart, and hold on to my own soul, and hold on to my own beliefs in order to make this venture, this new career successful. I am starting over, and that's an experience in reputation. I mean, everybody knew me everybody knows me in my old career. I developed, I did all the things that I'm doing now to recreate that. So I am taking some of my experience from the past, some of the marketing capabilities, some of the salesmanship capabilities, and using that to develop this career. But there's still an unknown. With that business, I knew I was hundreds of thousands of dollars a week coming in, and there were expenses, more expenses than this, but a much more substantial revenue stream. So all of those things are the hardest part of starting over. Maria, I appreciate your question. If you have any other questions, let me know. So Clive, hey, you were on yesterday, Clive. Do you think reinvention starts with mindset or action first? Mindset. Definitely mindset, because your mindset is what's giving you the direction of what actions to take. Right or wrong, there's an unfortunate part of this. It's right or wrong. So your mindset's got to be set right. Your confidence. Remember the old term, and this isn't exactly really good advice, but the old term of "fake it till you make it" is got some relevance to it. It's got some message in it that you need to understand and take hold of. So mindset in all things is what your path continues or starts on. Mindset is what's building, what continuously builds yourself. Remember Dr. Estrada yesterday? Clive, I know you were on there for sure. I saw you. You asked a couple of really cool questions there too. But in Dr. Estrada, he made the point where what you're thinking about, keep thinking about it, and it will come true. The counter to the good side of that is what your mind can see and believe you can achieve. That could be negative or positive. If you're whatever your mindset is the direction your life is headed, your body of work is headed. And so I would definitely say mindset is the thing that must come first. So let me pull back over here. I want to give back a little bit. I got a couple more questions there, but when I left the world, I knew and began building this platform, Insights and Straight Talk. I didn't know if anyone would care, but every week, let me move this a little bit. Sorry about that. But every week I meet people who say, Rod, I thought it was too late for me until I heard your story. That's the real message. It's never too late. So in answering some of the questions coming up, these are some of the notes I've kind of taken. I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to have this where it's on like a teleprompter. I actually have a segment in here where I'm doing that, but I just haven't set it up on my StreamYard yet. The courage to begin again, right? So starting over is a superpower. You got to realize this. If we're human beings, the hardest person in the world to compete against is somebody who will never quit. So it's a superpower to start over. You really have to, talking about mindset, you really have to realize that what you're doing is a superpower. What you're doing is the thing that needs to be done in order for you to complete your purpose. There's a video, a social media post I put out the other day that said, if God hasn't changed or is not fixing the thing that's wrong in your life, or that's holding you back, or the thing that's weighing heavy on you, then if he hasn't fixed that, that means that thing is there to fix you. So observe everything in your life and what's happening and how it's happening and the effects from those things as you react or work with whatever that situation is. Be curious. I remember Walt Whitman, one of my favorite line, and it comes from a show, is be curious, not judgmental. And there's a whole story there, but the thing is be curious about people, be curious about situations, be curious about results that come from your own actions. And I say this from experience because I've always been a curious person, but that last one that I just said, be curious of the reactions of people around you. You have to, because that feedback, life is never a straight line. It's a journey, right? And that feedback can add lights onto your path as you're going through your journey. If you're not curious and open about that, then your journey isn't going to be the best for not only you, but for your vibe, for what you send out into the world. What you send out to the world comes back to you. It's like a boomerang. And the curiousness in your day-to-day activity, in your day-to-day actions, in your actions and reactions with your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers, whoever that may be, you need to be able to make an adjustment. If I was more curious when I was younger, I would have done a better job of me, and thus for my families. I always took care of them, never had issues, but I wasn't. I'm a better person today than I was then, and it took me stupidity to get there, but it really took me. I was able to get there. We live in a world obsessed with youth, titles, and trends, but wisdom is a competitive advantage. Experience is your currency. So when you're changing and making a change in life and starting over, remember, you have experience, like I said just a second ago. or a little bit ago. This is all new to me. You know, I'm learning AI, I'm using AI, I'm using automation as part of what this show is about, one of those lanes. And I'm telling you, it's tough. It's tough to learn new things. You can teach an old dog new tricks, no doubt about it. But this old dog gets really tired emotionally and mentally because it's monotonous to learn new things when your hair is full of gray. But at the end of the day, you could still pull in the experience that you have had, that you've built up. That's your currency, your experience. That is part of you. And the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, that all is part of you. And that experience moving forward, step by step, needs to be thoughtful, needs to be direct, needs to be action, needs to be important to you so that you use that experience to make that transition easier. And honestly, I would suggest that people make changes in their life along the way, where they live, how they live, because we get too caught up in that mundane day-to-day activity. Shake it up a little bit, even if it's little things. Try a new. I mean, let's step back off of rebuilding yourself or reinventing yourself after 40, 50, or 63. Let's take a step back from that. Little things in your day-to-day lives, especially if you're a married couple, been married, you got a couple of kids or a bunch of kids or a kid, whatever it is, or whatever your relationship is, and doing the same thing in and out every day is comfortable. That's what the brain wants to do. The brain doesn't want change, and it fights change because it's hard. But if you're adding, we're stepping back here. If you're adding something different into your life, I made this change. There's been several changes. So I've never lived in a small town. I've lived all over the world, but I've never lived in a small town. And, since college, I've never lived alone by myself. Those two changes, much less this change, I'm really starting to tout, you guys should try living outside of the ways that you've lived in the past. And I'm talking about location now. One of the most rewarding and unusually rewarding, unexpected that it was going to be this rewarding, is to live in a small town. When I was in sales all those years, I was in outside sales. So I would go see companies, right? With appointments, obviously. You spend Monday and you're setting up your week, and Friday and Monday were days that I would be making sure the schedule that I was seeing the most people I could in a day, because you spend time on the phone. Every 10 phone calls you get an appointment. Every 10 appointments you get a sale. And your average sale is so much, so you could actually predict what your income is going to be. I haven't been able to get those dynamics in this figuring yet because it's all brand new. But when I was in sales, I would travel all over the place, right? Playing cards, so forth. But when I was driving, let's say I living in Chicago, and I had a series of meetings in the area of Ohio, and I'm traveling around, made my schedule, and in that schedule, your GPS is taking you, from point A to point B and to point C and point D, and then back to the hotel, point A. But while you're doing those travels, I used to drive through, of course, small towns all across this country. And what's interesting about this now today is back then when I was driving through small towns, and I would, towns literally, it'd take you 3 minutes to get through. and in all this small, and every once in a while I would drive up, pull off the main drag, and just kind of drive through the neighborhoods, get a feel for what that was like. I don't know why I was so curious about it. Maybe that was something that was preparing me for what I did here, because I realized like a few weeks back, I went, wow. I even said it on the show once. I said, wow, you know what? I used to drive through and just be curious about what people's lives were like in this. Because I mean, I think the smallest town I ever lived in was a small town of 40,000 people that the towns are all connected. Basically, you can't tell one from the out here. If I go outside of this town, it's 30 minutes before I get to another town. This is a totally different world. But I smallest town I ever lived in was like 40-some thousand people, and then the town attached to it was 170,000. The other town attached to it was 140,000, and then another town, again circling all around, was 82,000. So basically, I had 500,000 people that I lived within. Here, I'm living within 2,000 people. So one of those small towns, and I'm kind of living now that thought that I had before. So I went off on a little rant there, but just to kind of making a point there. Let's hit another one of these questions. Justina, how you doing, Justina? By the way, please subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our Substack, our newsletter, and get the backstage pass, so to speak. But so, Christina, how do you stay confident when life throws major changes your way? Great. These are great questions. I appreciate that. Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. It's so hard. Basically, it's impossible to beat somebody who won't give up. So confidence doesn't come first. You have to go through hell. You have to have that 8 seconds of devastating fear to then, on the other side of that, start building confidence in that. So to build confidence, you have to do. And I fail all the time. I failed my whole life. I mean, what was it? Edison failed 10,000 times or 100,000 times before he created the light bulb. By the way, did you know that Mangum, it just went out like last year, but Mangum had the longest is in New York. I think it's in the New York Library, but the second longest light bulb just went out from back being the first ever light bulbs. It actually just went out a year ago. And so just a interesting side note. So you got to gain confidence by doing. Fake it till you make it's one thing. That's a cute little phrase, but and then I learned that, and it's kind of a leading thought throughout my early days in sales. And it was a big thing. So that would have been what, the 80s, in early 90s. Sorry, apologize about that. That was horrible. But you've got to be able to take the step, take the next step, take the next step. It's like I talk about in this show. A couple of months ago, I took the first step of a 1,000-mile journey. Right? When I first started a year ago, I didn't know what this was going to turn into. I just knew I had to do it. I knew from the book, I was just going to, in building this platform, I was just going to, get a couple thousand people or whatever, get some sort of platform so I could use that in my bio and be able to show agents that I have a platform. And they would look at that and say, Good, bad, or indifferent. Damn. That was the time I took my first step in 1,000-mile journey. At this point, where we are, it really took off from just before we moved here to Mangum. I was still in that first, second, couple of third steps or whatever, just kind of sending things out, starting to market it a little bit, but not really knowing where it was going to go. Because all I was doing it for was to sell the book. And then something happened and people started responding. My other social media, I've got like 20,000 followers between my different social medias, if combined, right? Almost 10 here on YouTube, and then Facebook, X, LinkedIn, Instagram. They're all bubbling. Now I'm marketing to have that happen, but more and more people are just kind of joining in, and which reminds me, please subscribe to our Substack newsletter, and it's free. So support us, get the message, pass the message around. But I think I would now, and what I've been saying now is that I would say now that we're 75, maybe 100 steps along the 1,000-mile journey. So we're starting to really get momentum, and confidence builds from that. But you got to do it. Without doing it, you fail, and then that would work. Okay, I see how I can do this. Kind of sit up a little bit more, kind of lean into it a little bit more, and you have a place from which to continue to build from. And I can only imagine we're going to keep getting more and more confident as this time goes on. So David, thank you for this empowering conversation, Ron. Well, David, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say. You know what, folks? This hour has just flown by, and I'm going to ask you one more time to please subscribe. Please tell all your friends about this channel. Let me know episodes that you would like to see coming up. Communicate with us on our Substack newsletter. In there, we're going to start offering one-on-one. We're going to private, lessons and conversations like this. We'll have our own community discussions, and there's a lot more to come. But like I said, we've still got a lot of steps to go before our journey in this is even. We've got a lot of steps to go before our journey even gets to a point where it now is a major force within the communication world in passing information. I talk about watch parties, the political end of things, getting to know who the people are who are running. Most politics is local. Who is it that's in your chamber, in your Congress, in your Senate, in your House? Who is the one that is going to do the best for our community? Those are the things we need to really look at. Watch parties. We need to watch, and then we need to discuss, and then we need to vote. We need to vote. It's not any other level or order. You need to find this stuff out first, and that's what happens, and that's how we get to the point where this world is ready for utopia. Said it before, I'll say it again. There's a utopia coming. Will we in the great middle class be part of that? In other words, will we thrive? Or if we don't have our politicians in line and we aren't becoming a better, capable person, each and every one of us, one conversation at a time, then that that utopia is going to be for the elites, not for us. We make that decision ourselves. We either take our lives for a fact and invest back in ourselves. We can get 100,000 people at a football game. I get it. Nothing wrong with that. Every week, because it's engaging, it's fun. In that case, you're forgetting about your problems. But imagine for 3.5 hours, and it could be 30 degrees below zero out there, or it could be 110. No matter what the situation is, you're there to support your team. Well, why don't you support yourself? Let's take a minute, find out who's worthy of our time and effort, and vote in upcoming elections. I don't care what side of the aisle. I'm an independent. I don't give a crap about that. What I do give a crap about is the results that election has on my life and my family's life, my neighbor's life. That's the important thing. Why don't we spend an hour a week, a couple of hours? I spend, the time I spend out here because it's the right thing to do. And I know it's going to make a better world for me and my neighbors and my family. Now get outside, enjoy the day. Ronaldo, you're spot on. Absolutely. Why don't you guys do that? I'm gonna end on that. Ronaldo just nailed it. Everybody, you can do this. If you haven't or don't need to, you still should consider reinventing yourself to the later parts of your life. Why? Because when you learn new things, synapses grow in your brain. You talk about a longevity in life. You talk about an ability for your brain to have quality in life. If you're learning new things, or if you're reinventing yourself, you're going to become a better person. Whether that's out of necessity or whether that's out of choice, you are becoming a better person. Your brain is becoming a better brain. Your philosophy is more full. Your discussions are more interesting. Your experiences with people become fuller and richer. Like I like to say, you're adding colors in between the layers. That's the human experience. That's a reward. That's a superpower. So go out. Take Ronaldo's advice there. Go out and enjoy the day. This is Insights and Straight Talk. I'm your host, Rod Duff. I am out enjoying the day.
Before you leave, if you'd like to watch another one of the podcasts, click the first link in the description. We love having you here and we appreciate all your support.
And with that, producer Barbie and I are out.